Squid Game Season 2 is now on Netflix after a 3-year wait, this time with 7 episodes instead of the 9 that debuted in Season 1. And we pick up pretty close to where Season 1 left off, as a handful of surviving characters from Season 1 as well as some new characters are trying to get revenge on the creators of those games. And we'll talk all about Season 2 with full spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't seen Season 2 or Season 1, we are going to get into spoilers, but before we do that, I do want to give a special thank you to the sponsor, BetterHelp. We all go through personal stresses in life, and some of us have dealt with very severe anxiety. I certainly have in the past, and that's why BetterHelp has been excellent. BetterHelp is on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy through messaging, phone calls, and video chats. There's a journal inside the platform for personal reflection, and there are group sessions on a number of different topics available every day. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. You fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is that if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one when you find someone you really connect with. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. So if you're struggling and you think you'd benefit from a therapy session, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Chris Stuckmann and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Please do check out that link in the description below. That's betterhelp.com/Chris Stuckmann. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video. As far as Netflix phenomenons go, last year Baby Reindeer was gigantic, but the first season of Squid Game genuinely felt like one of those cultural moments. It was during a period where not a lot of us were going outside, and we didn't know what this thing was, and it was so shocking and so enjoyable, and I really loved Season 1. It took a long time to get to Season 2, so much so, in fact, that I kind of forgot about a lot of the plot elements and had to watch a recap, because that's what happens when you binge a show. You don't really digest it in the way you do when you watch one episode a week. And so I had to kind of get caught up, and I got caught up, and I watched all of Season 2, and like I said, this will have spoilers in case you missed the warning the first time. And I don't think this is quite as good as Season 1, but I do still think it's a very entertaining show, and I was mostly riveted for the majority of the episodes. The first one in particular is quite good. We're catching up again with Ji-hun as he is still trying to find all of these guys from the first season. He's using all of the money, his earnings from the first season, to finance that. He's been looking for them for a very long time, and even though the first season ended with him in that red hair, they were like, nah, never mind, he doesn't have to have red hair the whole season. They were like, we're going to have one character that you're going to love to hate who's going to have dyed hair this show, and so we don't want to have our lead have red hair the whole time. But we'll have a purple hair guy, and we'll call him Thanos, and we'll make you hate his living guts. A primary criticism I've seen about Season 2 amongst many is that it has a lot of unanswered questions. It's a lot of open threads when it ends, and there are plenty of things that happen throughout the show, and you're wondering if it's going to be addressed. Season 2 and 3 were shot back to back. This season does end on a cliffhanger, and for some people that is disappointing. I understand these criticisms, but they're not necessarily criticisms that I share, and I'll get into that. First off, I've watched a lot of episodic television over the course of my life. Not as much as some people. Movies have definitely taken center stage. I tend to watch the TV shows that everybody tells me I really should watch because movies have taken up so much time in my life. And when everyone says watch Squid Game, I listen. But still, I've watched a lot of episodic television, and most seasons of TV end with cliffhangers. And a lot of episodes want you to keep watching, especially in the binge era of Netflix. This is something Squid Game Season 2 does very well, because for the last 4 episodes, I was like, all right, this is the last one, and then I'm going to bed. And then it would end with this perfect cliffhanger, and I'm like, fine, I'll watch the next one. And I basically did that for 4 episodes in a row last night. And Season 2 definitely ends with a ton of things up in the air, and you're left wondering if some of them will be addressed. And it's not entirely satisfying because you are left in this state of like, oh, so like, what about this? And there's so many things that I struggle to comprehend Season 3 actually being able to address all of them, but they might. There is one thing in particular, though, from the first episode that did confuse me, and that is when he tracks down this guy, and he actually does pull the trigger during Russian roulette, and this is something he didn't necessarily have to do. It feels almost cult-like devotion towards these games, which isn't really something they've explored so far. And I'm curious why he did that, why he didn't just try to flee with his life, why he seemed happy, in fact, to do what he did. That's something I'm wondering if season 3 will address. As for all the other things that are kind of left hanging, in about a year from now, if you're watching season 2 for the first time and season 3 is out and you can just skip next episode right into season 3, you probably aren't going to have those same criticisms. It's a very now thing. So I don't feel like that will stand the test of time. The best example I can give is that I didn't watch Breaking Bad while it was airing. I watched, I think, the last 2 episodes or maybe the finale live with everyone else. But I binged the entirety of Breaking Bad leading up to that. When Hank is sitting on the toilet, I did not have to wait the amount of time that everyone else had to wait to find out what happens next. I just clicked next episode. And so I didn't feel like that crushing sense of, oh my God, what's going to happen? It kind of reminds me of how my dad, who is not a movie guy, and I've talked about this before, talked about The Empire Strikes Back, because he told me when he saw it in 1980, he hated it. And that a bunch of people in the theater were grumbling and very angry about how it just kind of ended with all of this stuff up in the air. Darth Vader's his dad, what? He lost his arm. What about Obi-Wan Kenobi lying to him like Han Solo's in carbonite? What? And they all just left so pissed, because they didn't have that finality. And I get that, but it's just not a criticism that I feel. I found this show to be mostly pretty riveting. It's not quite as good as the first. I think it's because this show is so based around this shocking concept. The sense of surprise is definitely gone. But also, you're kind of just wondering, because I didn't watch any trailers, so you're kind of just wondering, like, is he going to go back? Like, are there going to be more games, and are they going to be new? And when the first one is red light, green light again, you're like, okay, I feel like what's probably going to happen is that the first one will be the same, but the rest will be different, which is what happened. And all the games were very stressful and anxiety-inducing, just like the first time. And by far, my favorite aspect of Season 2 is that the primary villain of Season 1 has decided to be a participant this time around and actually talk to Ji-hun throughout the entire season and try to get to know him, which I found fascinating. This character known as the Frontman, played by Byung-hun. Legitimately one of my favorite actors. I Saw the Devil, check it out. It's a masterpiece if you haven't seen it. This dynamic throughout this season was so compelling for me to watch. I especially loved when he kicked Thanos' ass, because that character, let's talk about him for a second. So there's this wannabe rapper guy who's in the games, who's very much into the idea of killing people and has absolutely no fear whatsoever. And he is quite annoying on purpose. This is not a slight at the actor. The actor did his job wonderfully. He is supposed to be grating on your nerves. And the one thing that I wish they did differently with him is his death was so quick. I really wanted to savor that moment a little more. They got the right guy to do it. This guy that he picks on throughout the entire season. It's just that it happened so fast in the middle of chaos that I couldn't really savor this moment, And maybe they underestimated how much I was going to loathe that character. So while the games themselves are happening, there's also a group of people that Ji-hun teamed up with who are trying to figure out what island he's on, because he actually wore a tracker inside a fake tooth. When he got there, they found the tracker, so they don't know where he is. We occasionally cut back to them as they're searching, and I felt that this aspect of the show drug it down the most. I cared the least about that because it just felt like they're not going to find the island too quick. It'll probably be in the finale, which is, of course, basically what happens. And you're just kind of waiting for those scenes to end to get back to the games. But the creator of this show should really genuinely be so proud of the fact that these characters, especially our lead, is keeping me invested even in moments where I don't think it's as good as season 1. And it's mostly because this concept is still strong as fuck. And I am left in a sense of like, I don't quite know exactly if I'm going to appreciate all of these storylines once they have some finality. I'll know that when I watch season 3. The thing is, I get how some people will be frustrated by that. I kind of love it. It reminds me of how I would get very excited every time I would get a new season of a show that I loved watching as a kid, because mulling over the possibilities, talking to friends who are watching it about where something might go, the community that surrounds that type of event is very important to me. I know that nowadays that kind of community has largely moved online, and you can go on Reddit or wherever and read other people's opinions. But I still love the idea of getting together with my friends and actually discussing things and where we think something might go. And cliffhangers allow that part of my TV and film discussion to continue. And I really do appreciate those moments. The finale ends with a massive shootout and a lot of very realistic violence that I thought worked extremely well and was very riveting. And Ji-hun makes a choice that I could understand rubbing some people the wrong way, because essentially he is suggesting that some should be sacrificed for the greater good. It doesn't feel like the type of thing that gels entirely with his mission of this is wrong and we need to stop this. But I think from the perspective of someone who essentially was the sole survivor the first time around, he's probably thinking, can we just have it not be that again? Even if it's 10 people, it's better than one. And I think he's probably viewing it in that way. But of course, the ending of this season, and my favorite thing about the ending of this season, is the front man looks at him and says something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, but like, these are the consequences of your actions or your crusade or whatever it is that he said. But he was essentially saying like, see, you're trying to do something good, and now your friend has been killed because of that, and many others will and have. And so the show is not in any way condoning Ji-hun's actions. In fact, it's saying like, everything you're doing is wrong, and even though you're trying to go up against the system, it's still screwing you, and look how you're also hurting other people as a result. And I think that's really smart writing, because the show's hero is not just being challenged physically by the villains, but emotionally as well. And it's also challenging the protagonist to suggest that perhaps his views are wrong. And I think that's really great. And I want to see more writing like that in our movies, not just in TV. So yeah, not quite as good as season one. And I do think a lot of it is because it's impossible to regain the surprise that came with everything that happened in season one. But there are plenty of moments throughout season two that I very much enjoyed. I think the actors are all still phenomenal, and it's beautifully directed and shot. The sets are amazing, especially the Mingle set for that game. That was a beautiful, pretty mind-blowing set. Great job to the production designer, the set decoration, the art direction, all of that. So guys, if you saw Squid Game Season 2, I'll be curious to know what you thought of it. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.